Emma Collins heard the first gunshot while she was holding her son against her chest. The sound cracked through the marble entrance hall of the coastal mansion and sent a crystal lamp crashing from a side table. 6-year-old Ethan buried his face against Emma's shoulder as broken glass scattered across the floor. 3 armed men entered through the open doors. Behind them walked Richard Collins. Emma had not seen her uncle in almost 4 years, but she recognized the cold precision of his dark suit, his silver hair, and the gold ring that had belonged to her grandfather. Richard looked exactly as he had on the night Emma left the Collins estate. Powerful, controlled, certain that every person in the room belonged to him. Emma moved in front of Ethan, shielding him with her body. Matteo sat several feet behind her in his wheelchair. His black shirt was open at the collar. His face was pale from months of pain, but his eyes held the same terrifying calm they always carried before danger. Richard glanced at him and smiled. "So this is what remains of Matteo Valenti." Matteo said nothing. Richard turned toward Emma. "Come here, Emma. Bring the boy. This does not need to become unpleasant." Emma tightened her arms around Ethan. "You brought armed men into a house with a child. It became unpleasant before you entered the door." Richard sighed as though she had disappointed him. "You always did mistake stubbornness for courage." One of the armed men raised his pistol. Matteo placed both hands on the arms of his wheelchair. Emma did not see the movement behind her. She was too focused on keeping Ethan silent and controlling the terror rising in her chest. Richard took another step. "Matteo warned you about us." "Did he not?" Emma stared at her uncle. "He did not need to." Richard smiled again. "Then perhaps he did not tell you everything." The second gunman aimed at Matteo. Richard looked toward the wheelchair with open contempt. "Kill him first." Emma turned. Matteo's fingers tightened around the chair. His shoulders lifted. His feet pressed against the marble floor. Then the paralyzed man rose behind her. 3 months earlier, Emma had believed the most dangerous thing in her life was an unpaid electricity bill. She stood at the kitchen counter of her small apartment in New Haven, staring at the red notice while Ethan ate cereal at the table. The apartment was clean but cramped. A narrow hallway connected the kitchen to 2 tiny bedrooms. The radiator knocked whenever the heat came on, and cold air slipped through the window frames during the night. Emma worked as a home health aide during the day and cleaned offices 3 evenings each week. She had learned to live on little sleep, cheaper groceries, and the careful mathematics of deciding which bill could wait. Ethan looked up from his cereal. "Are we losing the lights?" Emma folded the notice before he could read it. "No. We are going to be careful with them." "That means yes. It means your mother has everything under control." Ethan studied her with the serious blue eyes he had inherited from his father. Emma smiled until he returned to his breakfast. Then she looked at the envelope beside the notice. The return address belonged to Collins Maritime. She had not opened it. Emma had been born into one of the wealthiest families on the East Coast. The Collins name appeared on cargo ships, luxury hotels, political donations, and university buildings. When she was younger, she had believed wealth meant safety. Then she had watched her family use money to control marriages, silence scandals, and destroy anyone who refused to obey. Emma had left after her husband, Michael, died in what the police called a highway accident. Richard Collins had immediately demanded guardianship rights over Ethan's inheritance, claiming Emma was emotionally unstable and incapable of raising a child alone. Emma had walked away from the family, the estate, and every dollar connected to their name. She had chosen freedom. Freedom, she had discovered, still required rent. Her phone rang. The woman from the employment agency spoke quickly. "We have a live-in caregiver position outside Greenwich. Private residence. The client requires complete discretion." Emma looked at Ethan. "How long is the position?" 3 months initially. "Possibly longer." Housing and meals are included. The salary is triple your usual rate. Emma became still. Why is it paying so much? The previous caregivers did not remain. Why? There was a pause. The client is difficult. How difficult? The agency representative lowered her voice. He fired 4 caregivers in 2 weeks. One left crying before lunch. Emma rubbed her forehead. What is his condition? Partial paralysis after a serious accident. He requires assistance with meals, medication, transfers, and physical therapy. He is 37 and mentally capable of making his own medical decisions. Emma looked at the electricity notice again. When would I begin? Tomorrow morning. The mansion stood above Long Island Sound, behind iron gates and several acres of bare winter trees. Emma drove through 2 security checkpoints before reaching the main house. It was not the bright palace she expected. The stone exterior seemed to rise from the gray coastline like a fortress. Tall windows reflected the cold water. Black security cameras followed her car along the curved driveway. A man named Gabriel met her at the entrance. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and dressed in a dark suit. A pale scar cut across one side of his jaw. You are Emma Collins. It was not a question. Emma lifted her overnight bag from the trunk. You must be the welcoming committee. Gabriel did not smile. Your son is not listed on the employment agreement. Ethan stepped out of the car, carrying his backpack. His school is closed for 2 days. I explained that to the agency. My neighbor will care for him after that. Gabriel studied Ethan, then looked back at Emma. Children are not permitted in the West Wing. Ethan whispered to Emma. Is there a monster in the West Wing? Gabriel's expression did not change. Yes. Emma took Ethan's hand. Then we will avoid it. Gabriel led them through the mansion. The interior was elegant but lifeless. Dark wooden walls framed expensive paintings. The room smelled of polished furniture, winter air, and something medicinal. Men in suits stood at several doors. They did not look like household employees. Their jackets concealed the shapes of weapons. Emma noticed but did not comment. At the end of the west corridor, Gabriel opened a pair of doors. A man sat before the windows in a black wheelchair. He faced the ocean, even seated. He seemed powerful. His shoulders were wide beneath a fitted black shirt. Dark hair touched his collar. A faint scar crossed the back of his neck and disappeared beneath the fabric. His right hand rested on the arm of the chair. A heavy silver watch circled his wrist. He did not turn when Emma entered. You are 8 minutes late. His voice was quiet and controlled. Emma checked the clock on the wall. 7. He turned his chair slowly. His face was severe and striking, with sharp features, dark eyes, and a thin scar near his left temple. Those eyes moved over Emma with unsettling precision. They paused on her plain sweater, her fuller figure, and the hand holding Ethan's. 7 minutes is enough time to die. Emma met his star. Then you should be grateful I arrived at all. Gabriel looked at her as though she had stepped onto the edge of a building. The man in the wheelchair remained silent. Ethan moved closer to Emma's side. The man looked at him. Who is this? My son? Ethan, I did not request a child. Children usually arrive without being requested. The man's gaze returned to Emma. Take him away. Emma felt Ethan's fingers tighten around hers. She lowered her voice. His school is closed. He will stay downstairs with his books. He will not disturb you. Everything disturbs me. That sounds exhausting. Gabriel turned his head, hiding something that might have been surprise. The man in the wheelchair stared at Emma for several seconds. Then he moved closer. Most people become nervous when I am unhappy. Most people are not being paid to help you take your medicine. You believe money makes you brave. No. Being a mother made me brave. Money only brought me through your front door. His eyes narrowed. Emma saw pain behind the anger. It was buried deeply, but she recognized it. She had seen the same expression in injured patients who despised needing help more than they feared dying. "What should I call you?" she asked. "Matthew Vale." The hesitation was almost invisible. Emma noticed it anyway. Matthew Vale did not sound like a man who had ever answered to that name. She placed her bag on a chair. "When did you last eat? I am not hungry." "When did you last take your medication?" "Leave." That was not an answer. It was an instruction. Emma walked toward the table beside him and checked the untouched pills. Then it was not a useful one. He seized her wrist before she touched the medication. The movement was fast. Too fast for a sick man. His grip was strong, but he did not hurt her. Gabriel stepped forward. Emma did not look away from Matthew. "You can release me. Or you can explain to the next caregiver why there is a hand-shaped bruise on my wrist." Matthew's gaze dropped to where his fingers encircled her skin. Something changed in his expression. He released her. Emma picked up the medication. "Water or coffee? Get out." "Water." Then, that should have been the end of her first day. Instead, Emma stayed. She made him eat half a bowl of soup by informing him that she would sit in front of him until he did. She ignored his threats to fire her. She reorganized his medication, argued with his physician over a dosage, and forced Gabriel to bring an adjustable transfer board that the previous caregivers had been too frightened to request. By evening, Matthew had spoken to her only when absolutely necessary. Yet his eyes followed her whenever she crossed the room. When Emma prepared to leave for the guest wing, Ethan appeared in the doorway, holding a book about sea animals. Emma frowned. "You were supposed to remain downstairs." "I got lost." Matthew looked at the book. "What is it?" Ethan held it against his chest. "A book." "I can see that." "Then why did you ask?" Emma closed her eyes briefly. Gabriel looked toward the ceiling. Matthew stared at Ethan. The boy stared back. Finally, Ethan walked into the room and placed the book on the table beside the wheelchair. "You can borrow it. My mom says people get angry when they are lonely." Emma's heart stopped. "Ethan." Matthew looked at her. "Does your mother speak about me often?" "She does not talk about you. She said it about the old man in our building." "I am not an old man." Ethan studied him. "You are angry like one." Emma hurried forward and took Ethan's hand. "We are leaving now." Matthew looked at the book on the table. "Leave it." Ethan smiled. "You can start with the shark chapter." That night, Emma woke to the sound of something falling. She left the guest room and followed the noise through the dark corridor. The mansion was quiet. Most of the lights were off. Moonlight reflected from the ocean and spread across the wooden floor. She found Matthew alone in the therapy room. His wheelchair stood several feet away. He was on the floor beside a support rail. One hand gripped the metal bar. The other pressed against his thigh. Sweat darkened his shirt, and his face had gone pale with pain. Emma rushed toward him. "Do not touch me. You are on the floor." "I am aware." She crouched beside him. "Where is Gabriel? Asleep." "Your therapist gone." "Why?" "Because I told him I would kill him if he lied to me again." Emma examined his legs. "What did he lie about?" Matthew turned his face away. "He said I would walk." The quietness of his answer affected her more than his anger ever had. Emma rested her hand near his knee without touching him. "What happened tonight?" "My right foot moved." "Are you certain?" He looked at her. "I know the difference between movement and hope." Emma glanced at the support rail. "You tried to stand." "I failed." "You fell. There is a difference." He gave her a hard look. "Do you always correct men while they are lying on the floor?" "Only the unpleasant ones." Emma reached for him. His hand closed around her forearm. Their faces were suddenly close. She could smell clean soap, medicine, and the faint trace of expensive cologne. His breathing was uneven. Anger and humiliation burned in his eyes. Do not pity me, he said. I do not. Everyone does. I think you are arrogant, rude, and reckless. None of those thoughts involve pity. His gaze moved across her face. Then help me into the chair. Emma positioned herself carefully and guided his arm around her shoulders. He was heavy and strong through his upper body. When she leaned forward, his chest pressed against hers. His breath touched the side of her neck. For one suspended moment, neither of them moved. Emma felt the force of his body, the tension in his arms, and the dangerous awareness passing between them. Then Matthew looked away. She helped him into the wheelchair. His hand remained at her waist for 1 second too long. Emma stepped back. Tomorrow, we begin with supported exercises. You do not attempt this alone again. You do not give me orders. Then consider it a condition of my employment. I can replace you. You have already replaced 4 people. 5. Emma folded her arms. Then you should probably stop frightening them. His eyes settled on her mouth before returning to her eyes. You are not frightened. Emma thought about the armed men in the halls, the cameras, and the speed with which he had caught her wrist. I am not foolish enough to tell you what frightens me. For the first time, something almost like approval appeared in his expression. Over the next 2 weeks, the mansion changed. Emma opened curtains that had remained closed since Matthew arrived. She moved his therapy sessions into the sunroom and argued with the kitchen staff until they prepared food he would actually eat. Ethan began spending afternoons at the mansion after school. He sat on the rug beside Matthew's wheelchair and read aloud. Matthew pretended not to listen. Then one afternoon, Ethan skipped a page. Matthew looked down. You missed the part about the whale migration. Ethan grinned. I knew you were listening. Matthew returned his attention to the window. Your technique was obvious. Emma watched from the doorway. There was still no softness in Matthew's face, but he had stopped asking Gabriel to remove Ethan from the room. He also began keeping a wooden chess set beside his chair. Ethan did not know how to play. Matthew taught him without patience, but with surprising care. Emma noticed other changes. Matthew learned the sound of her footsteps. He knew when she entered a room before she spoke. When she worked late, a car followed her home. When she asked Gabriel about it, he claimed the driver was protecting company property. Emma reminded him that she was not company property. The car continued following her. One rainy evening, Emma arrived at the mansion and found a man she did not recognize standing beside Matthew. The stranger was tall, blonde, and expensively dressed. He spoke with the confidence of someone accustomed to being welcomed. Matthew's expression became colder when Emma entered. The stranger turned toward her and smiled. You must be the famous caregiver. Emma placed her bag on the table. Famous seems unlikely. Matthew talks about you. Matthew's eyes sharpened. I have never spoken her name to you. The man smiled wider. You did not need to. Emma noticed the tension in Matthew's jaw. Gabriel entered moments later. Mr. Vale. The physician is waiting. The blond man offered Emma his hand. Julian Cross. Emma shook it. Matthew watched every movement. Julian released her hand slowly. Are you free for dinner this weekend? No. Matthew said. Emma turned toward him. Julian raised an eyebrow. I believe I asked her. Matthew moved his wheelchair forward. She works weekends. Emma did not. She could have corrected him. Instead, she saw the dark possession in his eyes and felt a dangerous spark of satisfaction. Julian looked between them. I understand. After he left, Emma closed the therapy room door. You do not decide whether I have dinner with someone. Matthew stared through the window. He is not someone you should trust. You are not someone I should trust. His gaze returned to her. Yet you come back every morning. Because you need me. The words landed between them. Matthew's expression hardened. I need no one. Emma walked to the therapy rail. Then stand without my help. Silence filled the room. She immediately regretted the words. Matthew turned his chair away. Leave. Emma remained where she was. That was cruel. Yes. I am sorry. He said nothing. Emma moved around the wheelchair until she stood in front of him. I should not have said it. You said what you believe. No. I said what I knew would hurt you. His eyes lifted to hers. Why? Because you hurt me first. He studied her with a stillness that felt more intimate than touch. Julian does not ask women to dinner because he wants conversation. Maybe I do not want conversation either. The muscle in Matthew's jaw moved. Emma felt heat rise into her face. She should have stepped away. Instead, she stood close enough that her knees nearly touched his. Matthew lifted one hand. His fingers stopped beside her cheek. He did not touch her. For several seconds, he looked at her as though restraint required more strength than standing ever would. Then an alarm sounded downstairs. Matthew's expression changed instantly. He seized Emma's hand and pulled her behind the wheelchair. Get on the floor. What is happening now? The sunroom windows exploded. Emma fell as glass showered across the floor. A bullet struck the wall above them. Men shouted in the corridor. Matthew reached beneath the side of his wheelchair and removed a black pistol. Emma stared at him. Move behind the stone column, he said. Ethan is downstairs. Gabriel has him. Another shot shattered the lamp. Emma tried to rise. Matthew caught her arm. You will not cross that hallway. My son is there, and you will die before you reach him. I am not staying here. His eyes burned into hers. Emma, listen to me. It was the first time he had spoken her name without coldness. He turned the wheelchair and fired twice through the broken window. Someone outside fell behind the hedge. Emma froze. Matthew's face held no panic, only deadly concentration. The locked doors opened, and Gabriel entered with two armed men. The east wing is secure. The boy is safe. Emma almost collapsed with relief. Matthew lowered the weapon. How many? 4 outside, 2 inside. Alive 1. Bring him below. Emma stared at him. Below where Matthew looked at Gabriel. Take Ethan to the safe room. Emma moved in front of the wheelchair. No. Gabriel stopped. Emma's hands trembled. But she did not step aside. Someone just shot through a window. You pulled a weapon from your wheelchair. Armed men are dragging someone below this house. You are going to tell me who you are. Matthew glanced toward Gabriel. Leave us. Gabriel hesitated. Now, when the room was empty, Matthew placed the pistol on the table. My name is not Matthew Vale. Emma already knew that much. Who are you, Matteo Valenti? The name struck her like cold water. Even people outside the criminal world knew it. Matteo Valenti controlled ports, construction companies, casinos, and an organization that federal investigators had tried to dismantle for more than a decade. There were stories about men who betrayed him and disappeared. Stories about judges who changed decisions after one private meeting. Stories about the Valenti family owning half the city without placing its name on anything. Emma backed away. You are the Matteo Valenti. There is only one. You lied to me. Yes. About the accident. No. Who tried to kill you? His eyes rested on her face. I do not know yet. Emma looked at the broken glass. That is not true. It is not the entire truth. Where is Ethan? Safe. I want to see him. You will. I am taking him home. You cannot leave tonight. Watch me. The men outside were not attacking the house. Emma. They were searching for you. Her breath stopped. Why would they be searching for me? Matteo did not answer quickly enough. Emma moved closer. Why? Because your name is Collins. The room became silent. Matteo watched the realization spread across her face. You knew who I was before I arrived. I knew your name. Did the agency send me here by accident? No. The answer tore through her. Emma stared at him. You hired me because of my family. I approved you because of your family. What is the difference? I believe you might be working for them. She laughed once, but there was no humor in it. You thought I was a spy. I thought you might be a weapon that did not know it had been aimed. Emma's eyes burned. Ethan slept under this roof. He was never in danger from me. He was in danger because of you. Matteo's face tightened. Yes, the honesty was worse than denial. Emma turned away, afraid that if she looked at him again, she would break. Why did you let us stay? At first, I wanted to know why they sent you. And later, Matteo remained silent. Emma looked back at him. Later, Matteo. His eyes darkened. Later, I no longer wanted you to leave. The words should have frightened her. Instead, they entered the deepest part of her and stayed there. She hated him for that. Matteo reached for her. Emma stepped away before his hand could touch her. Do not. He lowered his hand. Emma found Ethan in the secure room with Gabriel. The room was hidden behind a steel door beneath the library. Ethan sat on a couch, wrapped in a blanket, clutching the shark book he had given Matteo. Emma knelt and held him. Are we going home? Not tonight. Is Mr. Vale bad? Emma looked toward the doorway. Matteo sat beyond it in his wheelchair. His face revealed nothing, but his hand gripped the armrest. His name is Matteo, Emma said. Ethan looked at him. Did you lie because you are a monster? Gabriel looked away. Matteo answered calmly. Yes. Emma stared at him. Ethan considered the response. My mom says monsters do not usually admit it. Your mother is often wrong about me. She is not wrong very often. Matteo's eyes remained on Emma. No, she is not. They remained at the mansion because the roads were unsafe. Emma moved with Ethan into a room at the center of the house. 2 guards stood outside the door. She refused to speak to Matteo except when his medical care required it. That lasted 3 days. On the 4th night, she heard him fall again. Emma found him in the therapy room. But this time, he was not on the floor. He was standing. Both hands gripped the metal rails. His arms shook violently. His right leg supported some of his weight. His left foot dragged behind him. Matteo's face was pale with effort. Emma stopped in the doorway. He looked at her. Do not call anyone. She closed the door. How long have you been able to do this? 8 seconds. Yesterday. How long tonight? 23. His knee began to buckle. Emma rushed forward and placed her arm around his waist. He leaned against her. His breath touched her hair. You should sit, she whispered. Not yet. Matteo. Not yet. Emma tightened her hold. His body trembled against hers. She could feel the strength in him fighting against muscles that refused to obey. 1 more second. He said, You have already proven it. Not to them. To who? The people waiting for me to remain broken. He lowered himself into the chair. Emma crouched in front of him. Does Gabriel know? No. Your doctor? No. Why are you hiding it? Because the man who ordered my death believes I cannot stand. I intend to let him keep believing it. Emma understood. The wheelchair was no longer only a prison. It was a weapon. She looked at his legs. You need proper therapy. I need secrecy. You need both. Matteo leaned closer. Will you help me? The question carried more vulnerability than anything he had said since she arrived. Emma should have refused. He had lied to her, watched her, and placed her son inside a war she did not understand. Yet she also remembered him firing through the broken window while placing his own body between her and the bullets. She nodded. I will help you recover. That does not mean I forgive you. I did not ask for forgiveness. No, you asked for things you know how to control. His gaze held hers. I have never known how to control you. Their secret sessions began after midnight. Emma locked the therapy room and covered the interior camera with a towel. Matteo worked until his shirt clung to his body and his hands bled from gripping the rails. He never complained. He only became quieter when the pain was severe. Emma learned the difference between his anger and his fear. Anger made his voice colder. Fear made him silent. One night, his left leg failed beneath him. They fell together onto the padded floor. Emma landed against his chest. Matteo's arm wrapped around her automatically. Their faces were inches apart. Neither moved. Emma felt his heart pounding beneath her palm. His fingers spread across her back. You should let me go, she whispered. I know. He did not. Her gaze lowered to his mouth. Matteo lifted his head slightly. A knock sounded at the door. Emma pulled away. Gabriel spoke from the hallway. Matteo, we have a problem. Matteo sat upright, frustration and desire burning in his eyes. Emma rose quickly and uncovered the camera. Gabriel entered. He placed a photograph on the table. Richard Collins stood outside a hotel in Manhattan, shaking hands with one of the men who had attacked the mansion. Emma felt the room tilt. That photograph could mean anything. Gabriel placed another beside it. This one showed the same man entering a Collins maritime warehouse. Matteo watched Emma carefully. Your uncle supplied the weapons used in the attack that injured me. Emma shook her head. Richard is cruel, but he is a businessman. He would not order an assassination. Matteo's expression became hard. He ordered 12 men to trap my convoy beneath an overpass. He paid a police captain to delay emergency response. 4 of my men died before sunrise. Emma looked at the scars near Matteo's temple. What happened to you? An explosion overturned the car. A piece of metal entered my spine. The doctors believed I would never move below the waist again. Why would my family want you dead? Collins Maritime lost access to several ports after I refused to transport Richard's private cargo. What cargo? Women. Weapons. Men who had been promised work and were sold when they arrived. Emma felt sick. No, I destroyed the routes. Richard lost millions. My family owns legitimate shipping companies. Your family owns whatever produces money. Emma stared at the photographs. She remembered locked offices at the Collins estate. Conversations that stopped when she entered. Michael warning her not to ask questions about certain containers. Her husband had died 2 weeks after confronting Richard over falsified shipping records. Emma looked up. Michael's accident. Matteo's eyes changed. What about it? He was investigating something before he died. Matteo glanced at Gabriel. Emma saw the silent exchange. You know something? Gabriel stepped back. Matteo spoke carefully. I know Michael Collins contacted one of my accountants 8 days before his death. Emma's heart began pounding. Why? He wanted protection for you and Ethan. Emma gripped the edge of the table. Protection from Richard. Matteo nodded. Why did nobody tell me? The accountant disappeared before the meeting. Emma looked at the photograph of her uncle. For years, she had forced herself to believe Michael's death had been random. Believing anything else would have meant accepting that her family could reach her anywhere. Matteo moved closer. Emma, do not. She turned away, pressing one hand against her mouth. Matteo reached toward her but stopped before touching her. She saw the restraint. She saw how much effort it cost him. That almost destroyed her more than the truth. The following morning, Richard called. Emma stood alone in the mansion library when her phone rang. His voice sounded warm. Emma, it has been too long. Her hand tightened around the phone. How did you get this number? We are family. Family should always know how to find one another. What do you want? Your mother is ill. Emma closed her eyes. Her mother had chosen Richard and the Collins name over her daughter, yet the thought of losing her still opened an old wound. What happened? She collapsed last night. She keeps asking for you. Where is she? The Collins Hotel in Manhattan. Private medical suite. Why not a hospital? You know how your mother feels about publicity. Emma looked toward the library doors. Richard continued. Bring Ethan. She wants to see her grandson. No. His voice cooled slightly. Emma, whatever disagreements exist between us, your mother does not deserve to die without seeing you. The call ended. Matteo found Emma packing. You are not going. Emma folded Ethan's sweater. She may be dying. Richard is lying. You do not know that. I know he wants you outside this house. You do not make this decision for me. Matteo blocked the doorway with his wheelchair. No. Emma stared at him. Move. No. You cannot imprison me. I can prevent you from walking into a trap. She stepped closer. This is what you do whenever you are afraid. You control the room, the people, and every door. Matteo's face hardened. I am not afraid. You are terrified. His eyes flashed. You have no idea what I am capable of when I am terrified. Then tell me. The silence between them became charged. Matteo's hand closed around the arm of the wheelchair. I am capable of locking every gate, taking your phone, and placing guards around you until Richard Collins is dead. Emma's breath caught. That is not protection. That is possession. His voice dropped. I no longer know the difference when it comes to you. The confession frightened her because she believed it. Emma leaned closer. Then learn the difference. She walked around him. Matteo caught her hand. His grip was gentle. If you leave, Gabriel goes with you. No. Then you do not leave. They stared at one another. Finally, Emma agreed to take Gabriel. The Collins Hotel occupied a glass tower above Manhattan. Black cars surrounded the entrance when Emma arrived. Gabriel walked several steps behind her, while two of Matteo's men waited near the elevators. Emma left Ethan at the mansion. Richard had asked her to bring him. That was exactly why she had refused. Her mother was not in the private medical suite. The room was empty except for Richard. He stood beside the windows with a drink in his hand. Emma stopped near the door. Where is she? At home. Perfectly healthy. Gabriel reached inside his jacket. Richard's men entered behind them. Emma looked at her uncle. You lied. I needed you to come voluntarily. Why? Richard set down his glass. Because Matteo Valenti has confused you. I know about the shipping routes. For 1 second, his expression changed. Then he smiled. You always were too curious. Did you kill? Michael. Richard walked closer. Michael made the mistake of believing evidence mattered more than loyalty. Emma felt the truth before he spoke another word. The room seemed to narrow around her. Richard continued. He intended to take you away. He also intended to place his shares in Ethan's name. Emma's voice shook. What shares? Your husband owned 12% of Collins Maritime. With the shares your father placed in trust for you, Ethan now controls enough of the company to remove me. I never received anything from my father, because I made certain you did not. Gabriel moved between them. We are leaving. Richard's men drew their weapons. Richard looked at Emma. Sign the transfer documents. Give me Ethan's shares. Then you and the boy may return to your little apartment. You murdered my husband. He forced me to solve a problem. Emma struck him. The sound echoed through the suite. Richard's head turned with the blow. When he looked back at her, the warmth had disappeared completely. He raised his hand. The hotel windows shook as an explosion sounded in the street below. Black vehicles blocked the entrance. The lights went out. Emergency alarms screamed through the building. Gabriel pulled Emma behind him. The suite doors burst open. Matteo entered in his wheelchair. 6 armed men surrounded him. He wore a black coat over a dark suit. His face held no emotion. But his eyes found Emma immediately. Richard recovered first. You brought a cripple into my hotel. Matteo moved forward. You used her mother's name to bring her into a room with armed men. Richard smiled. And yet she came. Matteo stopped beside Emma. His gaze moved to the faint red mark on Richard's cheek. Did she strike you? Richard's smile vanished. Emma placed her hand on Matteo's shoulder. He looked up at her. She could feel the violence inside him, waiting for permission. Matteo, take me home. His eyes remained on Richard. Gabriel collected Richard's phone and the papers from the table. Matteo turned his wheelchair toward the door. Richard spoke behind them. She will hate you when she discovers how you found her. Emma stopped. Matteo did not. Richard laughed quietly. Did you believe the employment agency selected you? Emma. She looked at Matteo. His shoulders had become rigid. Richard continued. We placed you in that house. Emma felt the blood drain from her face. What? Your application was moved to the top of the list. Your background check was altered. A tracking device was hidden inside Ethan's backpack. Emma turned to Gabriel. He looked away. She faced Matteo. You knew. Matteo said nothing. You knew they used my son to find you. I discovered the tracker after you arrived. How long after? The first day. The betrayal cut deeper than she expected. You could have sent us away. Sending you away would have exposed you. You kept us inside the house they were planning to attack. I strengthened security. You used us to draw them out. Matteo's expression changed. At first, Emma stepped back. At first, Richard watched with satisfaction. Matteo reached for her. She pulled away. Do not touch me. Emma walked from the suite without waiting for him. She returned to her apartment with Ethan the following morning. Matteo did not stop her. That hurt more than she wanted to admit. Gabriel placed guards outside the building. Emma demanded their removal. They moved across the street instead. For 5 days, she ignored Matteo's calls. On the 6th night, she found him sitting in his wheelchair beneath the broken streetlight outside her building. Snow drifted through the darkness. He wore no coat. Emma walked toward him. What are you doing here, waiting? For what? You. You could have waited inside a car. You would not have come downstairs. She folded her arms against the cold. You will become sick. Matteo looked up at her. I have survived worse. That does not make this intelligent. No. It makes it necessary. Emma glanced toward the black car parked behind him. Did Gabriel bring you? He argued against it. For once, I agree with him. Matteo's face was tired. The shadows beneath his eyes revealed nights without sleep. Emma had never seen him look uncertain. I should have told you about the tracker, he said. Yes. I should have sent you somewhere safe. Yes. I did not. Why? His gaze held hers. Because you walked into my room and treated me like a man instead of a ruined body. Emma said nothing. Matteo continued. You argued with me. You brought sunlight into rooms I had closed. Your son placed a book beside my chair and expected me to still be there the next day. Snow collected in his hair. I told myself I kept you close because Richard would reveal himself. That was true in the beginning. And after, I began measuring my days by the sound of your footsteps. Emma's throat tightened. Matteo looked toward her apartment window. When you left, the house became what it was before you arrived. Secure, silent, dead. You lied to me. I know. You risked Ethan. I know. I may never forgive that. I know. Emma stared at him. Then why are you here? Because knowing that you may never forgive me does not change the fact that I will protect you until I die. The words carried no request, No demand, only certainty. Emma stepped closer and placed her coat around his shoulders. This does not mean you can come upstairs. Matteo touched the edge of the coat. No. It means you are an idiot sitting in the snow. Something almost tender passed through his eyes. Emma turned toward the entrance. Good night. Matteo. Emma. She looked back. He lifted one hand from beneath the coat. His fingers closed around hers. He did not pull her closer. He simply held her hand as snow settled around them. Emma remained for 1 minute. Then she went upstairs alone. The family attacked 2 days later. Ethan was leaving school when a woman wearing a teacher identification badge approached him. Emma saw the woman reach for his hand. She ran across the parking lot. The woman seized Ethan and pulled him toward a waiting vehicle. Emma caught the door before it closed. A man inside struck her across the face. She fell onto the pavement. The vehicle sped away with Ethan inside. Emma screamed his name. A black car crossed the parking lot and crashed into the kidnapper's vehicle before it reached the gate. Gabriel and 2 of Matteo's men emerged. Gunfire shattered the rear window. Parents ran with their children. Emma crawled toward the damaged vehicle. Gabriel pulled open the door and dragged the armed man onto the ground. Emma reached Ethan. He was crying but unharmed. She held him against her body as the woman who had taken him ran toward another car. One of Matteo's men stopped her. Gabriel crouched beside Emma. We have to move. They took Emma and Ethan back to the coastal mansion. Matteo waited in the entrance hall. When he saw the bruise forming on Emma's face, his expression became terrifyingly empty. He moved toward her. Ethan ran ahead. Mr. Matteo. Matteo caught him against his chest. The boy wrapped his arms around Matteo's neck. Emma watched Matteo close his eyes. For several seconds, the feared Mafia boss held Ethan as though the child were the only living thing in the world. Then Matteo looked at Emma. Who touched you? It does not matter. His voice became lower. Who? The man Gabriel took alive. Matteo handed Ethan to Emma. Stay upstairs. What are you going to do? Ask him questions. I know what that means. Then do not ask me to lie. Emma stepped in front of his wheelchair. No violence in this house while Ethan is here. The man tried to take him. I know. He struck you. I know. Matteo's hands tightened. I have imagined killing Richard Collins every night since the attack. I have imagined it more clearly since learning what he did to your husband. Do not ask me for mercy now. I am not asking for mercy. I am asking you not to become the thing my family believes every powerful man must become. Matteo looked at her for a long time. Then he called Gabriel. No blood in the house. Gabriel nodded. Emma started toward the stairs. Matteo caught her hand. She turned. He raised her bruised knuckles toward his lips. His mouth stopped just above her skin. He looked at her, waiting. Emma did not pull away. Matteo pressed one slow kiss against her hand. The tenderness was more dangerous than violence. That night, Emma found him in the therapy room. He stood without holding the rail. A black cane supported his right side. Emma covered her mouth. Matteo took one uneven step, then another. He reached her before his strength failed. Emma caught him. He placed both arms around her and held her against his chest. You walked, she whispered. Toward you. Tears filled her eyes. Matteo touched her cheek. His thumb moved carefully beneath the bruise. I should have been at the school. You cannot be everywhere. I can try. That is exactly what frightens me. His forehead touched hers. Tell me to stop. Emma knew he was not speaking about walking. She looked into his eyes. I do not know how. Matteo kissed her. There was nothing gentle about the first moment. Months of restraint broke between them. His hand moved into her hair. Emma gripped his shirt as he held her closer, standing through the pain because he refused to release her. Then his knee weakened. Emma supported him. Matteo broke the kiss and rested his forehead against hers. I hate this chair, he whispered. Emma touched his face. Then walk away from it. With you, she nodded. With me. For the first time since she had known him, Matteo smiled. It was brief and almost disbelieving, yet it transformed his entire face. The prisoner taken at the school revealed the final plan. Richard Collins had bribed one of the mansion's security officers. He intended to enter the estate during a scheduled power shutdown, kill Matteo, and force Emma to sign over Ethan's shares. Matteo decided not to prevent the attack. He decided to control it. The false security officer remained at his post. The gates were allowed to open. Most of Matteo's men disappeared into concealed positions around the estate. Richard still believed Matteo was paralyzed. Only Emma, Ethan, and Gabriel knew the truth. Matteo practiced walking every night. He could cross a room with a cane, but standing without support still caused severe pain. Emma begged him not to make his recovery part of the trap. He refused. Richard needs to believe he has won. What happens when he enters? He discovers he was wrong. Emma looked at the pistol on the table. And if he brings more men than you expect, Matteo moved closer in his wheelchair. Then you take Ethan through the library passage. I am not leaving you. That was not a request. Emma crouched until their eyes were level. I am not one of your men. No. You are the reason I need them. Her anger weakened. Matteo touched her face. If anything happens, you take Ethan and go. What about you? His thumb moved across her cheek. Before you, survival was habit. Now it has a purpose. The lights failed at 9:15 on a stormy Friday night. Wind struck the mansion windows. Emma sat with Ethan in the library while Matteo waited in the entrance hall. He wore a black shirt and sat motionless in his wheelchair. The cane was hidden beneath a long dining table. Gabriel stood in the shadows near the staircase. The front doors opened. Richard Collins entered with 5 armed men and Emma's mother beside him. Emma rose. Mother Catherine Collins looked older than Emma remembered. Her elegant coat was soaked from the rain. Fear tightened her face. Richard told me you were ill. He told me Ethan was in danger. Richard stepped into the light. Both statements became true because neither of you listened to me. Emma moved Ethan behind her. Her mother looked toward Matteo. Is that him? Richard smiled. The great Matteo Valenti. Matteo's expression remained calm. Richard walked closer. You destroyed my routes. You took my ports. You placed spies inside my company. I did as senses. Richard looked at Emma. And then you took something that belonged to me. Matteo's eyes became cold. Emma has never belonged to you. She is a Collins. She is the woman who will end you. Richard laughed. Emma held Ethan's hand. You killed Michael. Catherine turned toward her brother. What is she talking about? Richard ignored her. Michael was weak. Catherine stared at him. You told me the accident was caused by ice. Richard's patience disappeared. Your husband was preparing to surrender evidence to federal investigators. Your father tried to protect him. Both men forced my hand. Emma became still. My father died from a heart attack. Richard looked at her almost kindly. Your father died after signing his shares to Ethan. Catherine stepped backward. You killed your own brother. Richard raised his weapon. I saved the company. One of his men aimed at Emma. Matteo placed both hands on the arms of his wheelchair. Emma moved in front of Ethan. Richard looked at Matteo and smiled. So this is what remains of you. Matteo said nothing. Richard gestured toward Emma. Come here. Bring the boy. No. Richard sighed. You always did mistake stubbornness for courage. The gunman raised his pistol. Matteo gripped the chair. Emma saw Gabriel move in the darkness. Richard stepped closer. Matteo warned you about us. Did he not? He did not need to. Richard turned toward Matteo. Kill him first. Matteo pressed his feet against the marble floor. He rose. The entrance hall became silent. Matteo stood behind Emma, one hand gripping the wheelchair and the other holding a pistol. His legs shook, but his aim remained steady. Richard's smile disappeared. Impossible. Matteo stepped away from the chair. Emma looked over her shoulder. He moved between her and the armed men. One slow step, then another. The man Richard had tried to leave helpless now stood in front of him. Matteo's voice was calm. You should never trust a man to remain where you left him. Richard fired. Matteo pulled Emma down as Gabrielle returned fire from the staircase. The marble hall erupted with gunshots. Matteo covered Emma and Ethan with his body. A bullet struck the wheelchair behind them. Gabriel's men emerged from hidden doors in the upper gallery. 2 attackers surrendered immediately. Another attempted to reach the side exit and was stopped. Richard seized Catherine and pressed his weapon against her throat. Everyone froze. Catherine stared at Emma through tears. Richard dragged her toward the door. Let me leave, or she dies. Emma started forward. Matteo caught her waist. Richard tightened his arm around Catherine. You have always been sentimental. Emma, that is why you lose. Catherine closed her eyes. I am sorry. Emma. Her hand moved. She drove her heel into Richard's foot and pulled away. Richard raised his pistol toward Emma. Matteo fired first. The weapon fell from Richard's hand. He collapsed against the doors. Clutching his shoulder, Gabriel kicked the pistol away. Richard looked up at Matteo. You should kill me. Matteo stood above him, leaning heavily on the cane Gabriel had brought. There was no mercy in his eyes. Emma approached. Matteo looked at her. She understood the question he did not ask. Richard had murdered her husband and father. He had used her son as a weapon. Matteo would end him if she gave the smallest sign. Emma looked down at her uncle. No. Richard smiled through the pain. Still weak. Emma shook her head. You will live long enough to lose your name, your company, and every person you believed you owned. Federal vehicles entered the estate 20 minutes later. Gabriel had delivered evidence from the Collins warehouses, financial records, and Richard's recorded confession from the entrance hall. Catherine agreed to testify. The remaining Collins directors removed Richard before sunrise. Emma became the legal controller of the shares left to Ethan. She used them to dismantle the illegal shipping routes and establish a fund for the families harmed by Richard's operations. Matteo never asked her to surrender the company to him. He never asked for her inheritance. He asked for only one thing: stay until I can walk to the ocean. Winter faded into spring. The mansion opened to sunlight again. The shattered windows were replaced. The therapy room doors remained open. Ethan left books in every room and defeated Gabriel in chess after months of practice. Matteo walked farther each day. At first, he used the cane. Then he crossed the library without it. Emma watched from the doorway as he reached the fireplace. The damaged wheelchair remained beside the wall. Matteo placed one hand on its back. Gabriel offered to remove it weeks earlier. Matteo had refused. Emma entered the room. Why do you keep it? He looked at the chair. To remember the man you met. You hated that man. I hated what he believed. What did he believe? That needing someone was the same as surrendering? Emma moved closer, and now Matteo rested one hand on her waist. Now I know there are people worth surrendering to. She smiled. That sounds dangerously romantic. Do not repeat it. Your reputation would suffer. He drew her against him. My reputation survived being shot, betrayed, and paralyzed. I am not certain it will survive, Ethan, telling everyone that you cried during the whale documentary. My eyes were injured. Both of them, severely. Emma laughed. Matteo watched her with the same intensity he had carried from the first day. Yet the coldness was gone when he looked at her. In its place was something deeper, something no less dangerous. Devotion had not softened him. It had given his darkness a direction. That evening, they walked toward the cliffs above Long Island Sound. Ethan ran ahead with a wooden sailboat. The sunset turned the water gold. Matteo used no cane. His steps were slower than before the attack, but each one was controlled. Emma remained beside him without offering help. She knew he would ask when he needed it. They reached the stone wall overlooking the ocean. Matteo stopped. "This is far enough." Emma looked toward the mansion behind them. "You said you wanted to walk to the ocean." "I did." "You are not at the ocean." He looked over the cliff. "I refuse to climb down there." Emma smiled. "Then I suppose you failed." Matteo turned toward her. His hands settled at the curve of her waist. "I reached what I wanted." Emma's heartbeat changed. He glanced toward Ethan, who was kneeling in the grass with his boat. Then he looked back at her. "I spent years building an empire because power was the only thing nobody could take from me." Emma touched the scar near his temple. "They almost took everything." "Almost?" His expression became serious. "This house, the ports, the money, and every man who answers to me mean nothing if you and Ethan are not here when I return." Emma's eyes filled with tears. Matteo reached into his coat. He removed a small velvet box. Emma stared at it. "You are not kneeling on that leg." His mouth moved with the faintest trace of amusement. "I survived an assassination. I can survive a proposal." He lowered himself carefully onto one knee. Ethan noticed and ran toward them. Matteo opened the box. Inside was a simple diamond ring set in dark silver. "Emma, I will never promise you a peaceful man. I cannot promise a life without enemies. I can promise that no secret will stand between us again. I can promise that Ethan will always be protected as my son. I can promise that every step I take for the rest of my life will lead back to you." Emma covered her mouth. Ethan pulled gently on her sleeve. "Mom, you have to answer." Matteo looked up at her. Emma placed both hands around his face. "Yes." Relief crossed his expression so quickly that another person might have missed it. Emma never would. She kissed him as the wind moved across the cliffs. Ethan wrapped his arms around them both. Matteo rose with Emma's help, then slipped the ring onto her finger. Behind them, the mansion windows reflected the sunset. The wheelchair remained inside beside the cold fireplace. Empty and forgotten, the man who had once believed needing someone made him weak stood above the ocean with Emma in his arms and Ethan between them. He had risen to defeat the family that betrayed him. He had walked to reclaim the empire they tried to steal. But the first step that had truly saved him was the one he had taken toward a woman who had entered his house without fear, placed her hands around his broken body, and refused to let him remain on the floor. Emma looked into his eyes. "What happens now?" Matteo held her closer. "Now everyone learns what happens when they threaten my family." Emma raised an eyebrow. "That sounds ominous." "It is." Ethan lifted his wooden boat toward the wind. Matteo looked at the boy, then back at Emma. "But tonight, we go home." Together, they walked toward the mansion as darkness settled over the water. Matteo no longer walked alone. And for the first time in his dangerous life, he no longer wanted to